Have you ever found yourself sitting in a quiet room, maybe the kitchen, maybe your favorite chair by the window, and felt like something was missing? You're not quite sad. You're not quite angry. You're just not full. You've done so much for others in your life. You were there for your children when they needed rides to school or hugs after heartbreaks. You made birthdays special. You held the house together during hard seasons, and you gave love in 100 different ways, most of the time without even being asked. But now, the phone rings less. The days seem longer, but the calendar is emptier. Sometimes, even when you're surrounded by people, it can feel like you're slowly fading into the background. If you've ever felt that way, I want to tell you this. You are not broken. You are not weak. And you are definitely not alone. What you're feeling, this strange kind of quiet sadness, this emptiness, is something many women over 60 experience, even though no one really talks about it. It's not just about being alone. It's about wondering who you are now, after all the roles you used to play, mother, wife, daughter, caregiver, have shifted or disappeared. For so many years, you were defined by what others needed from you. But what happens when no one is asking anymore? This isn't just boredom. It's the feeling that you're no longer essential, that your days are quieter but not peaceful, that your life is still moving but not going anywhere. That sense of drifting can be painful and even scary, because it's not just about what's happening around you, it's about what's happening inside you. And part of what makes this feeling worse is the stories we've been told about what life is supposed to look like at this age. We've been told to be grateful, to enjoy retirement, to be quiet, content, and fade gracefully. But the truth is, many of us don't feel that way. And that's not a failure. It's a signal. A whisper from deep inside that says, I want more. Now that doesn't mean you're not grateful. You likely are, for your home, your family, your memories. But gratitude and longing can live side by side. You can be thankful and still want to feel more alive, more connected, more you. And yet, that longing can be clouded by invisible myths, beliefs we've been carrying for years without even realizing it. Beliefs that quietly, but powerfully, make that emptiness feel even heavier. One of the most dangerous myths is the idea that it's too late to begin again. That after 60, your chances have passed and you've missed your moment. That your dreams are too old, your voice too quiet, and your worth tied to what you used to be. But here's the truth. There is no deadline on becoming. If your heart is still beating, your story isn't over. Just ask Julia Child, who didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 50. Or Grandma Moses, who picked up a paintbrush for the first time at 78. They didn't get lucky. They got ready. You might not want to write a book or start painting. That's okay. Maybe beginning again for you means going on that trip you've always dreamed of, or finally learning to swim, or simply taking time to listen to yourself, really listen, and ask, what do I want now? Another painful myth is the one that tells us wanting more is selfish. As women, we've been taught from childhood to put others first. Be polite. Be helpful. Be dependable. And when we dream of something for ourselves, guilt often follows, whispering, you should be happy with what you have. But think about this. If your closest friend said to you, I want to feel more joy, more purpose, would you call her selfish? Of course not. You'd say, you deserve that. And guess what? You deserve that too. Wanting more isn't greedy. It isn't ungrateful. It's human. And after years of giving to everyone else, it's not only okay to give back to yourself, it's necessary. Because when you nourish your spirit again, you don't become less generous. You become more whole. You stop giving from emptiness and start giving from overflow. Still, even when we begin to want more, many women feel like no one understands them anymore. You try to explain how you feel, this strange mix of loneliness, restlessness, and longing, and people just don't get it. Maybe they change the subject. Maybe they say, but you have so much to be grateful for. And so you stop sharing. You smile politely. You go quiet. And inside, you feel more and more alone. But the truth is, millions of women feel this way. They're just as quiet about it as you are. That doesn't mean it's not real. It just means we've been taught to carry it in silence. But the silence isn't where we heal. It's in connection, in conversations that feel honest and kind, in meeting even just one person who says, "I feel that way too." If you've been feeling invisible, please hear this. You are not. You're still here. You're still layered and complex and beautifully human. And you deserve to be seen, not just as someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's grandmother, but as yourself. As a woman with depth, wisdom, and dreams that didn't expire when you turned 60. That brings me to one more quiet myth that creeps into our thoughts on a rainy afternoon or when another birthday rolls around. The idea that your best days are behind you. That what's ahead is just a slow fade into stillness. But who decided that? Why should the best parts of your life only exist in your 30s or 40s? Why can't your best moments still be unfolding? You may not move as quickly as you once did, but you move with more intention. You may speak more softly, but your words carry weight. You are not fading. You are ripening. And if that emptiness you feel is a sign of anything, it's not the end. It's a doorway. A chance to begin again, this time from the inside out. So take a breath with me. A real one. You've come so far. And the road ahead, no matter how quiet, still belongs to you. You might not notice it at first. The emptiness doesn't always arrive like a loud knock on the door. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through a silent house in the morning, a dinner table set for fewer people, or a calendar that no longer overflows with reminders and errands. And even when you're grateful for the calm, part of you misses the noise. Not because you want to go back, but because that noise reminded you that you were needed. And yet, so much of the world insists that you should be feeling free now. You've earned this, they say. Isn't retirement wonderful? But freedom without direction doesn't always feel like a gift. Sometimes it feels like floating. Like waking up and wondering, what do I do with this day that stretches out in front of me? That's what makes another myth so sneaky. The idea that you should just be grateful and not ask for more. Gratitude is beautiful. It anchors us. It helps us see the blessings we already have. But somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that gratitude means we must stay quiet about everything else. That if you have a roof over your head, a few good memories, or children who turned out okay, then you should ask for nothing more. But you can be grateful and still want more meaning. You can love your past and still long for something new. One doesn't cancel the other. In fact, real gratitude gives you the courage to ask, what's next? Because your life is worth continuing to build, even now. Another belief that deepens the emptiness is this one, that no one really understands anymore. And when you carry your questions and feelings in silence, it becomes easy to believe you're the only one struggling. After all, who do you tell? Your children have their own lives. Your friends might look like they're doing fine, even if they're also aching inside. The truth is, many women are walking through this same season feeling the exact same thing. But because we've all been taught to smile, to stay strong, and to keep the loneliness quiet, we end up suffering alone, together. But you don't have to stay in that silence. Sometimes, all it takes is one honest conversation, one moment of truth-telling, one person who says, "Me too." It may feel scary at first to let someone in, to say out loud, "I'm feeling lost," or "I don't know who I am anymore." But those words can be the beginning of healing. You deserve to be heard. You deserve spaces where you don't have to explain or justify or pretend. And those spaces do exist. You may just have to take the first brave step to find them. And then there's the final myth, the one that settles in deepest of all. The belief that this emptiness is simply what aging feels like, that it's normal, expected, just a part of getting older. But please hear this clearly. Growing older does not mean growing invisible. Aging is not the end of your story. It is a powerful chapter in which you get to rewrite the rules. Emptiness is not inevitable. It is not permanent. It is not your new normal. Yes, life has changed. Yes, some doors have closed. But that only means it's time to find new ones, even if you have to build them yourself. What you are experiencing is not a weakness, it is a call. A call to wake up the parts of you that were quieted by years of doing for others. A call to finally come home to the version of yourself that you might have put on hold for decades. So, where do you begin? You begin with healing. And healing doesn't mean fixing. It means listening. It means reconnecting. It means opening up to what you already carry inside, the parts of you that have been waiting patiently for your attention. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you are. And that starts with reclaiming yourself. For so long, your identity was wrapped up in the roles you played: wife, mother, daughter, worker, caregiver. And those roles were important. They shaped you. But they were never the full story. Now that those roles have quieted, you're left with a beautiful, terrifying question. Who am I when no one is asking me for anything? It might feel strange, even selfish, to explore that question. But I promise you, it's not. It's sacred. It's vital. And the answers are already there, tucked into your memories, your passions, your quiet longings. What made you smile as a child before the world told you who to be? What have you always wanted to try but never gave yourself permission to explore? What feels like peace to you? Reclaiming yourself doesn't need to be dramatic. You don't have to move across the country or start something big, unless you want to. It can begin with something as small as picking up a book you've been curious about, taking a walk without your phone, joining a local writing group, or just sitting quietly and asking your heart what it's hungry for. You don't need to figure it all out at once. You only need to begin. Every choice you make that feels true to you, no matter how small, is a step back toward yourself. And as you begin to return to who you really are, something else happens. You start to crave connection again. Not surface-level chit-chat, not polite nods and weather talk, but real connection. The kind where you can say what you feel without being judged. Where someone looks into your eyes and sees not just a grandmother or neighbor or older woman, but you. That kind of connection heals things you didn't even realize were broken. And I know it's not always easy to find. Friends move. People get busy. Life pulls us apart. But that doesn't mean connection is gone forever. Sometimes you have to be the one to reach out, to make the call, to say, "Would you like to meet for coffee?" Or, "I'd love to hear your story." There are groups out there, book clubs, art classes, support circles, waiting for someone just like you. And online spaces too, filled with women quietly searching for the same thing. You don't need dozens of people. You just need a few honest ones. People who meet you where you are, who remind you that you still belong, that you still matter. And you do. You are still here. And that means your story is still unfolding. So much of what you're carrying isn't because you've done something wrong. It's because you've done so much right for so long. You've held things together, made life softer for others, and stayed strong even when you were tired to the bone. And now, in this quieter chapter, something inside you whispers, "What about me?" You've begun the journey of remembering who you really are, not the roles you've played, but the soul underneath. You've started to reach out, maybe even felt a spark of connection again. These steps matter. They shift the emptiness, even if only a little at first. And now, there's one more gentle but powerful step. Create something that lasts. Now, when I say create, I'm not talking about producing something for the world to judge or applaud. This isn't about productivity. It's about presence. Creating something, anything, is how we remember that we are still here, that we still have something to give, not because we have to, but because we want to. It's a way to honor the space we occupy, to say, I felt something. I lived. I loved. I mattered. Maybe it's words in a journal. Maybe it's a garden you tend with care. Maybe it's a recipe you pass on, a voice recording of your memories, or a painting no one else will ever see. Maybe it's a story you've never told before, even to yourself. You don't need talent. You need only truth. Creation isn't about performance, it's about permission. Permission to take up space in your own life again. There was a woman I once met, quiet, kind, 74 years old. Every morning she wrote down just a few lines in a notebook, a memory, a moment of gratitude, a thought that moved her. She never shared it with anyone. It wasn't for an audience. It was for her. Years later, after she passed, her granddaughter found that notebook and called it the most precious thing she'd ever received. Not because it was polished, but because it was real. That's the power of creation. It doesn't need to go viral to be valuable. It just needs to be honest. And you, my dear friend, still have so much within you waiting to be expressed. You still hold stories that deserve to be spoken, feelings that deserve to be felt, beauty that deserves to be shaped. You don't need to prove your worth. You simply need to let yourself be. There's something sacred about watching a woman come home to herself. You can see it in the way her eyes soften, the way she breathes a little easier, the way she walks into a room not to serve it, but to belong in it. This kind of becoming isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention, but it changes everything. And if you're feeling empty right now, I want you to know that you're standing at the edge of something extraordinary. Not an ending, a beginning. A quieter one, yes, but no less powerful. I know it hasn't been easy. You've walked through heartache, maybe even loneliness that felt too heavy to name. You've shown up for birthdays, funerals, graduations, and hospital rooms. You've loved people who didn't always love you back. You've done the invisible work, the thankless tasks, the quiet heroics that held your world together. And now it's your turn. It's your turn to rediscover what makes your heart sing. Your turn to walk slowly through the garden without needing to rush back inside. Your turn to listen, not to the needs of others, but to the rhythm of your own spirit. Because you are still alive. And that means life still lives in you. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to long for joy, connection, meaning, without guilt, without shame, without apology. You are allowed to create new firsts. First time saying no without guilt. First time choosing yourself. First time waking up and asking, what do I want today? You are allowed to take up space in the world. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with quiet dignity, with deep, unshakable presence. Some of the most powerful chapters in our lives aren't loud. They don't come with fireworks or grand announcements. Sometimes they arrive in a soft sunrise, a new friendship, a tiny act of courage, a single breath of truth. This isn't about becoming someone else. This is about returning to the woman you were before the world got so loud. And maybe, just maybe, this is the most important part of the journey. Not chasing youth, not fixing what was never broken, but learning to live from the inside out. To rise in the morning not with dread, but with curiosity. To feel the ache of longing and know it means you're still reaching for life. To stand in front of the mirror and see someone worth choosing. Over and over again. If something in your heart stirred as we've talked, hold on to it. That flicker of recognition, that lump in your throat, that quiet yes deep inside, that's you, knocking gently. Asking not for a perfect plan, not for a complete map, just for one small, honest step toward yourself. You are not too late. You are not too old. You are not done. You are still unfolding, still becoming, still here. And from my heart to yours, I want to say, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for daring to believe there is more. You are not invisible. You are not fading. You are not a shadow of who you used to be. You are the same soul, wiser now, stronger now, deeper now, and this season of your life holds just as much potential as any that came before. So breathe. Begin again. Not for anyone else, not for a role, not for approval, but for you. Your story is not over. It's just beginning again, in your own words, in your own way, at your own pace. Welcome home.